Hey everyone, I'm Matt Morrell with the Mordo Mortgage Podcast. I will be your host today. I run our Meridian, Idaho branch for JMJ Financial. We've got Jason Thibodeau, my business partner down in Southern California, who runs our Huntington Beach office. And our guest today is Chase Craig. Chase is one of the owners of City of Trees Real Estate with Keller Williams here in Boise, Idaho. Chase has been in real estate for over 20 years or so, Chase.
19 now, 19.
19 years. He's done everything from real estate sales, new development, syndication, running a team, coaching and mentoring, new agents, existing agents, ground up construction, buying land, entitling it, selling it to developers. So just about every aspect of real estate. Since I've known you, Chase, you've dabbled in to some extent. I shouldn't say dabbled. You've been all in, and you know, we've got a really great relationship. We're in a mastermind together that meets, once a month, and we just work really well as professionals attempting to progress our industry in the right direction and serve our clients well. So with that, Chase, welcome to the podcast. We're happy to have you.
Yeah,
Well,
appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity. Thanks so much.
Yeah, you bet, man. Today, we wanted to touch on the NAR lawsuit. I know that it's been a big topic. It's been beat a little bit, but I still think that there's some relevant information, and it's constantly developing as well. Jason and I just got an email from one of our head underwriter about 5 minutes before the podcast that we will share also that's relevant to the NAR lawsuit. So we'll touch on that for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then a couple other topics, and we'll keep it to 30 minutes today. So to start, Chase, what prompted me to invite you on the podcast was I saw that you put out about a 40-minute video specifically on the NAR lawsuit, and I was super impressed with how thorough you were, how you looked at it. Even though you're a real estate agent, a realtor, and I didn't sense any bias in it at all. I just sensed a real authentic explanation of what's going on and no emotion behind it, which, everything I'm seeing online right now on YouTube, there's so much emotion behind it. I understand that, but it takes a different professional to just lower that emotion and look at it objectively and deliver value to people who are wondering what's going on. And so I wanted to reach out and just have you on to speak to some of the major points of what you discussed. If we can kind of recap that 40-minute video, and we'll link to it down below in our YouTube here. But I'd love to hear just your take on it real quick, and then we can kind of go back and forth with some questions. So I'll let you take it.
Yeah. Thanks for the introduction, and really appreciate that, by the way. And I have literally failed at almost everything you can fail at in real estate. So that's my claim to fame. And I'm still here. So I guess I'm just continuing to learn. As Tony Robbins says, there's no such thing as failure. There's only outcomes that you can learn from. So I feel like I've learned a lot in this business, and dabbling is, I definitely dabble until I don't, and then I'm all in. And, that I've done that on running a real estate business, coaching real estate agents across the country, and, syndications, developments, all that stuff. So, diving into this NAR settlement, you said that I didn't really have any emotion. That's really interesting, because that I probably would have been the last thing I would have said, having listened to myself. But you're right. That's not to say I didn't have emotion when I first heard about it and my reactions. The reality is, though, emotion clouds judgment. It's not serving you in your decisions moving forward. So, obviously, in the time frame we have, I can't go into the 40 minutes, but the 40 minutes, just a high level on that, is essentially, if you don't know anything about the lawsuit, it's going to bring you up to speed there. And then I'm going to go in more in depth on what I believe could be taking place in the future. So feel free to watch that video. I know they're going to link to it. More of a high level conversation here, because I think your audience is probably already up to speed with a lot of this stuff. And if they're not, they can watch the video, of course. But around the settlement, there's really a big the big thing is the Department of Justice and this lawsuit that came out. They do not want anyone setting buyer agent compensation other than the buyer and the buyer agent. So that's a big takeaway. They don't want any other parties influencing the amount of money that is paid to a buyer's representative. So, you've heard buyers agents aren't going to get paid anymore. That's a lot of the emotional response, or like all these agents are going to have to leave the business now. Another emotional response. The reality is, like, no one's going to work for free. Buyers agents, myself, since 2011, I have not worked with a buyer without getting an agreed upon commission agreement before I ever put them in my car. So I've already been operating this way for at least 13 years, and everyone I've had on my team, I've educated them to operate this way. So, what's really changing? It's just the conversation that you're going to have with the client. So I do have to say a couple things though. One, as of today, it's March 28th as we're recording this. This has not been approved. And until it's approved, everything's going to continue to be the way it was. There are always people that are trying to change the way that agents are compensated. Flat fee brokers, don't use a broker at all, use an attorney, pay in advance, pay by the hour. These have already existed for, as long as I've been in this business. So none of that's really going to change until this actually gets approved, which we don't know when that's going to be. If it does get approved, again, one of the major changes is the only person setting compensation is a buyer and a buyer's agent. That's it. Those are the only type of buyer compensations are going to be set. They're no longer allowed to offer compensation through the multiple listing service for a buyer broker. Does that mean a seller cannot pay a buyer's agent? No, it does not. The seller can absolutely still contribute to a buyer's agent's commission. We spent a long time talking about this earlier today in a mastermind I'm in with Gary Keller. And, it absolutely is the case that sellers can and likely will continue to offer to pay for a buyer's representative. Sellers are going to do whatever they can to let their homes stand out to get it to sell quicker. And if they believe that paying a buyer's representative will help them, then they're going to do it. So that cannot be publicly displayed through the multiple listing service. And by the way, it's not going to be publicly displayed through any of the, aggregate data providers like Zillow and Trulia and all that. That won't be there. But I could see email blasts going out. I could see text blasts going out. I could see sign writers on real estate listing signs that say, we're going to be offering to pay X. So that's what it is. The second thing that I think is another pivotal thing is what I already mentioned that I've been doing, and my team's been doing for years, which is if you want to represent a buyer, you have to get an agreed upon buyer broker agreement before you start touring properties. And that was not required before. I think it should have been required. I think what you're going to see here is a lot more transparency in the business. Some agents were saying, hey, work with me, you don't have to pay anything. And that's not 100% true. Regardless of how you look at this, like, they're paying for the home. The commission was built into the price. So technically the buyer might have been paying. Technically the seller was paying. It's not 100% true that you work with an agent for free. You're going to get way more transparency now. I actually do, as I've had more and more time to think about this, I actually do think this is a good thing for consumers and agent professionalism as well. So with that, I'll hold for any questions. I know I threw a lot out there.
No, that was a great rundown. Now, just so I'm clear, like with Keller, you're with Keller Williams, right?
That's correct.
Is Keller Williams having you guys integrate any changes yet, or is it? I know it's just a proposal at the end of the day right now, and it sounds like based upon what you just shared, we really don't know when this is going to be finalized and what the final version is going to look like. Has anything changed at all with your approach?
No. It just like I said earlier, it's kind of business as usual. Nothing's been told, hey, do this, other than what's always been told to us as agents. there is no standard commission. Commissions have and always will be negotiable, from here until likely the end of the time, right? Like that has not changed. And that's just a further iteration through our Keller Williams affiliation.
One
And
other follow up on this, Chase, is sorry to interrupt, but just as it comes to mind, I know you mentioned you guys already do the buyer broker agreements. In my marketplace in Southern California, it's pretty non-existent. Not that it doesn't exist, but that people don't do it. It just on the outside, being a lender looking in, it feels to me like the natural byproduct in a positive way for agents is they're actually going to have more meaningful vested interest and commitment from their buyers that they're putting in the car on the weekends and showing property to. Because my experience over the years has been that in a lot of circumstances, not all circumstances, but a lot of circumstances, buyers agents can spend a month or 2 or 3 showing property and serving a potential buyer, only to find out that they ended up with another agent or riding with the listing agent or whatever. And it's a very it's a huge letdown and a huge waste of time from the agent's perspective. Does that potentially solve that issue maybe?
Yeah, good point, Jason. I totally agree with that. And that's in fact why I did it, 13 years ago in my business. I let's see, back in 2011, 2012, essentially, I sold 45 homes, and I was basically a solo agent with a part-time assistant. So I sold 45 homes. The next year, 2013, I sold 79 homes, and again, basically a solo agent.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, ton of work. Well, I'm a slow learner. I already told you I've failed at almost everything you can fail at in this business. And I joke about this, but it's kind of true. Like, you only make that mistake 10 or 12 times before you start to realize, like, hey, I should get a commitment from this person. Because I've had, the classic story of, like, someone calls you on your listing. They're like, hey, can I see this? And you're at your kid's birthday party and they can only see it tonight. And you're like, damn, that's a lot of money. Okay, I go show it to them. You show it to them, ask them if they want to buy it. And they're like, yeah, we love this home. We're going to buy it. And you're like, great, let's go ahead and get the paperwork ready. And they're like, no, we're going to have our agent do that. And you're like, oh, and I know already the agents are out there. I was like, you didn't ask them if they had an agent. Okay, I'm not perfect and I've made mistakes, all right? And again, you only make that mistake 10 or 12 times before you start to realize, like, shoot, I need to have a buyer consultation with these people, and my script is exactly this. And since this is recorded, hopefully this helps someone, but my script is this. Let's go ahead and meet in my office for a buyer consultation. During that time, I'm going to answer all the questions you have and maybe even don't know to ask. We're going to set up a custom search showing you all the properties that are on the market and even some off-market properties, which they get excited about. That would be like cancels, expireds, stuff that I can go to work trying to find for them. And then lastly, we're going to see if we're a good fit to work with one another, which in other words means I'm going to ask you if you want to be my client. And my pitch on that, everyone's paperwork all over the country is different, but my pitch on that's very simple. Like, should you purchase a home between now and the next 6 months, are you comfortable working with me as your agent? They say yes, boom, initial. Then we go to the next page, go to the next page. Then we go over compensation. This is how I get compensated. There's a number of ways in the future. I think the conversation is going to be like this, Jason and Matt. The conversation is going to be like, there's a number of ways that I can get paid this. You as the buyer are the one that will be paying me this, but we can ask the seller to contribute to this. They may or may not do that. If they agree to do that, we might have to increase the price, and it could have been money we could have used elsewhere. But I'll do everything that I can to help do whatever it is you want to do around paying this commission.
That's the uncharted territory right now. That's the uncharted territory right now. Correct. Is how a buyer is going to respond to that. And part of me just feels like, yes, there's going to be the growing pains of getting used to the new normal, but I kind of feel like what's going to end up happening is nothing's truly going to change other than the semantics. And ultimately,
the conversations we have are going to change.
Yeah, right. I'd be really shocked if this turned into the seller, on a collective societal basis, says, well, we're just not going to pay buyer's agents anymore, period. Like, I just don't see how that actually
Well,
becomes
the
a thing.
problem is you're dealing with sellers and they're wanting to be competitive. And if they can be more competitive than you, and that happens to be by paying an agent's commission on
Yeah.
the buyer side, like you're going to have this natural, kind of competition, and then it's going to just determine what happens, right?
Wait, you mean the market is going to figure all this out? That's
I'm
incredible.
sensing some sarcasm, and yes, I mean it's going to figure it all out. I agree with you.
Yeah, usually the market usually solves its problems. I mean, honestly, if we just let the market do its work, supply, demand, and you're right, sellers have to be competitive. If one house is offering to pay a commission and the other's not, I mean, the buyer's going to look to the one that's helping them out, you know?
Yeah, and really, Matt, what happens? Let's say that is the case. One offers, one doesn't. Then it's a math problem,
Right.
right? Like
Yep.
I'm going to say, okay, this one, they're both 500,000. One's offering a commission, one's not. Okay, the one that's not offering a commission, let's say I like that house a little bit more, but everything else is identical. I just like it more. It's got the street numbers I like, or whatever. I'm going to go in and I'm going to offer them less,
Yep.
right? Because this one's this price, this one's this price. I mean, at the end of the day, it's literally a math problem. So it will figure itself out. That's a great point.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. Matt, maybe we bring up the FHA announcement we just got right before hopping on the podcast, because I think it's relevant for people to hear and even for Chase to hear, because it's kind of what we all would hope to hear from the lender's perspective, but I didn't know it was going to come this soon.
Yeah. Do you have that up, Jason? Or
Yeah, I do. So this is from FHA. Just got announced. FHA has received questions from its stakeholders regarding how the proposed settlement agreement will affect the treatment of seller-paid buyer real estate broker fees and transactions using FHA-insured mortgage financing. So here's the interesting part. Under existing FHA policy, if sellers continue to pay buyer-side real estate agent commissions and fees as a manner of state and local law and custom, and if the commissions and fees are reasonable in the amount existing policy would not treat those payments as interested party contributions provided by all requirements are met. So all that means to say is these lenders, whether it's FHA or Fannie Mae, they put limits on interested party contributions, so the seller can only contribute so much. I think with FHA, what is it, 6%? So we're probably not an issue there, but it's not going to count towards that limit, which is nice. So it almost makes it irrelevant. The fear was that was going to count towards interested party contributions, and that was going to create some problems in the escrow. The good news is it's not, at least in the case of FHA.
yeah, and we would expect Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to hopefully follow suit, and hopefully we get guidance on that here pretty quickly, and that would be welcome news.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if there was conflicting guidance between Fannie, Freddie, and FHA.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I mean, I think that's awesome. And it's so funny because if you go watch my video, that was one of my predictions is I think the lending world is going to adapt to this. Now, there was a word that triggered me a little bit, not triggered me, but it caught my attention. If they're reasonable. So what does that mean? And, I'm not trying to poke the bear here, but who knows what that means, right?
Yeah, 2.5% to 3% is customary. So I think that's probably what they're referring to.
So you're a lender, you can say that. As a real estate agent, I can't say any of that, and I never would, and I'm not condoning that there's any customary commission.
Yeah. Well, you guys should get paid. But honestly, I was thinking it'd be 6, 12, 18 months before anybody on the lending side gave any feedback on this, let alone before any of this was finalized in the courts. So pretty encouraging.
Yeah, that's great
absolutely. To hear. Chase, just shifting gears a little bit, I thank you for your time on that. We will link to Chase's video. I'd encourage everybody to go watch it. I really got a lot of value out of it. So thanks for spending a few minutes on that lawsuit and settlement, et cetera. Can you tell us a little bit about, Keller Williams and the platform that you're on, Livian Select specifically? Can you tell us a little bit more about that and your role in it?
Yeah. Thank you for asking. So my business partner and I, Brent, we merged our top producing real estate teams in the Boise area about almost a year ago now. And we did that and joined a platform called Livian. So we've started our, not really a franchise, but it's almost like a franchise through Livian, which is called Livian Select. And a platform essentially serves as, kind of like a beehive system for the agents, right? Like everyone does their own part. How can we consolidate expenses? How can we bring the best technology to the forefront? How can we offer high level solutions for agents who want to keep their brand, but maybe don't want to, be doing every single thing under one roof? Everything from the finance piece to the marketing piece to the technology piece. All these things are solutions that, businesses have to figure out. And let's just be very real. Like, it's not easy to keep up with everything, all this cutting edge stuff, right? And we're just getting to the first inning of artificial intelligence, and who knows how quickly everything's going to be changing for real estate professionals as we move forward. And one of the things I really love about being a part of a platform like Livian is that the speed to innovation. We've been able to implement technology, even on the artificial intelligence side, quicker than, most agents in the country, just because of our affiliation with Livian, because, we all support each other, and there's sometimes an economic incentive to do that. So let me just give you a quick example. So I'm running Own Boise. That was my team. And Brent is running City of Trees, both top producing real estate teams selling a couple of hundred homes or more per year in the same market. We both had really cool stuff that we had built, and we did not share it with each other, right? Obviously, we're competition, right? There's no point in doing that. But now you're with a platform like Livian, and let's just say you have something super cool and you want to share it through the Livian platform, and maybe there's even a financial incentive for me to share my cool idea. I'll get paid, or I'll get some sort of, income out of it, and I'm giving it to these other areas that I'm not competing with. It just ends up being like the speed to innovation is so critical, and we've seen a lot of that come forward. But long story short, basically with Livian Select, we can partner with larger real estate companies, typically 15 to 30 million plus, or like 30 to 40 units or more. These are the kind of people that we can provide some solutions for at scale. And oftentimes the people that end up joining us, their monthly expenses, just because of the economies of scale, can pay for their partnership. So if they want to find out more about that, they can go to livianselect.com, and we'd love to chat with them.
Yeah, it's not easy in my experience to sell real estate, or in our case, produce mortgages and run a business. Mm-hmm. It's challenging to do both. If you're in the business, you're being pulled away from your income producing activities.
Yeah.
And then your income inevitably is affected, right? And so if you can be on a platform that relieves a lot of that back office work and helps with some innovation and technology, I see that as a big win for agents, to allow them to go do what they're good at. Typically, agents are good at producing, not doing the books, for example, right? So
yeah,
I see a lot of value in that platform.
Another way that I've described it to people, wherever you're listening to this at, in your market, there's probably a low price leader from a real estate brokerage perspective. So the cheap brokerage, right? They don't really give you any value, but you can hang your license and sell real estate for cheap. And then you have, I'll just use Keller Williams. Keller Williams is usually not the cheapest brokerage, also usually not the most expensive either, and adds quite a bit of value. And then I look at Livian, and Livian's going to take that value proposition to a whole nother level. And I want you to imagine that you had a do-it-yourself project. Let's say you have a plumbing issue in your house and you're going to fix it on your own. That cheap brokerage, the low price leader, that would be like going to, I don't know, your local grocery store and going to the hardware section, and those are the tools you got, right? You got to do it on your own, and here's the tools you have. And then going to a brokerage like Keller Williams, who, obviously is one of the training leaders in the world. across all platforms. Like they're just the culture of training and education and value is definitely unquestioned. That would be like going to like an Ace Hardware, so a place that's got a lot more tools, maybe not everything, but it's got a lot more tools. And you still got to do it yourself, right? And then you come to Livian, and Livian's like the Home Depot or the Lowe's. You could build a whole house there. You're going to have 50 different types of screwdrivers, right? Like we have every single tool you would need to achieve at the highest level, and you still got to do it on your own. So the reason I bring that up is because you're talking, Matt, about like, hey, every second you spend doing this administrative thing is a second you're not helping someone buy or sell or do a loan, right?
Yep.
You also have administrative assistants who probably work for you. Some of these teams, doing 30, 40, 50, 100, 200 units a year. Your administrative people can now plug into a system and extract the most amount of value because now they have the best tools to work with. So that's how I like to explain it to people.
That's fascinating, Chase, and it's a good short segue into kind of getting towards the end of our conversation here. And I know that this whole conversation can be looked at from both an agent's perspective and a consumer's perspective.
Yeah.
And I think what you just spoke to, high-end brokerages with high service, high cost, low-end brokerages with low service, low cost, things in the middle. We talked a little bit before jumping on here. What's the importance in today's world of consumers talking to multiple agents, interviewing multiple agents, and most importantly, making sure that they're working with a professional, both on the lending side, the real estate side, the insurance side, the inspector side, all facets? Like, to me, it just occurs like that's more important than ever. And I'm just curious if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. Hey, thank you. And I don't know if we got another hour or so, I could talk about this. I'm just kidding.
It goes by fast, man. I know.
I know it goes by so quick, but I could get on my soapbox here. This blew me away. I was looking at the National Association of Realtors statistics, and I'm going to butcher these. They're not exact, but they're very close. So buyers and sellers, it's slightly different between the two, but they're still very close. I was blown away that almost 70% of them only meet with one agent, which means 70% of them are not interviewing agents. And you know how they get their agent. It's their brother's cousin's uncle's mailman, right? Like it's someone that they know somehow and they're like, oh yeah, I got an agent. Here's the problem, guys. And this has been since COVID. This market is shifting fast. Every single day it's different. Look at this FHA rule. This kind of stuff comes down the pipe to professionals like Matt and Jason here every single day. Now more than ever, you working with a great real estate professional who works with amazing lenders like these two. Like it is critical because this market's moving so fast. And if you don't have someone in your court who is doing a lot of business and understands what's happening in the market, you could miss out on that dream home, right? If the market's going up and multiple offers and highest and best, and we're paying overprice, you got an agent who's like, let's lowball them, and you're missing out on every home. Like that's impacting your ability to get your dream home, and vice versa, right? If the market is obviously softening and we have a position where we can get more aggressive with pricing, but your agent doesn't know what the market's doing, that's a problem. So I implore you, interview multiple agents. Guys, ask them questions like, how many homes do they sell per year? Does that matter? Yes. Like if you were going to go get surgery, do you want to work with the person who's never done the surgery, or do you want to work with someone who's done it 10,000 times?
Yeah, it matters. It matters. A small anecdote on that. I had a past client who was using a family friend to represent them, and they were striking out. I was going to be, their lender. And I asked them the question, so, what kind of offers are we writing here? Like, what are the timeframes? Oh, just traditional timeframes, traditional contingency timeframes. This is somebody putting over 40% down, and wants a house, is motivated. And we're in the Southern California marketplace. It's similar, I'm sure, in Idaho, but very low inventory, and they're just striking out. And I just, I'm not the agent, but I suggested to them, hey, we need to be writing shorter terms. Go ahead and remove the appraisal contingency. Let's do a 7-day financing contingency. Next offer they wrote, What do you know? We're in
Hey,
escrow, right?
Jason, let me ask you a question. Why did you suggest that? Why did you suggest that?
They didn't have their own good agent. They didn't have their own good representation.
And
Yeah,
because you do enough business to
right.
know that that's happening every day in the marketplace, right?
Yeah, I had no idea because I never usually get involved with, butting in on, how to write an offer. And usually when I start getting questions or I start seeing buyers strike out a lot and I don't know the agent, that's where I'll be like, oh, okay, let's talk about this. What's going on? But it just speaks to what you're saying. Now, I think where people are confused though, Chase, is when they hear this, it's not that they don't agree, but, they're confused. Like, how do they go about finding out who does a lot of business? Where would they go? Where would they look? Because I think people don't know where to look.
Yeah, well, gosh, I mean, every market's going to be different. Don't just Google it and then pick the agent on top who paid $5 to get in front of you, right? Like, even though we pay $5 a lot, and it might be us, we pay that because we can't get in front of you guys, right? But it matters, and let me give you a real life example. Like I've talked to buyers like this, but let's go back to 2018, 2019. Multiple offers, highest and best was happening all the time. I talked to a buyer. They lost out on like 6 homes. And what do? They get frustrated and they say, we're going to wait. And what happens if they waited from 2019 until, let's say, 2022? Like that they lost a ton of money. If you don't know, real estate almost doubled depending on your market. So they would have had to pay twice as much just because they chose an agent that didn't know what the hell they were doing. So how would I find an agent? You could call, I'll be biased. Like, I love Keller Williams. Call a Keller Williams. Ask them, hey, can I get your top 3, whatever, if I'm selling a home? Who's your top 3 agents at your company who list houses? And they'll give you names, and you can interview all 3 of them. If you want multiple from different brokerages, you can call the other brokerages you see. But there's a number of ways to do it. I don't think any one way is perfect, but if you're meeting with more than one agent to ask them questions, it's going to give you an idea of who's going to be better for you. That alone would be better than 70% of people are doing it today.
Yeah.
Yeah. And same goes for the lender. I mean, the lender oftentimes can hinder an offer too, whether they're out of state or online or don't have a local presence or whatever, can't close in 15 days. The lender can have just as big of an impact as a buyer missing out as the agent. So it's so important to work with a good team overall. We are already past 30 minutes. It's crazy. But Chase, any final departing thoughts? Jason, any final departing thoughts?
Take it away,
Thank you, guys. These guys know what they're doing. My last parting thought will be just a thank you to Matt and Jason. These guys know what they're doing. Selling real estate for the last 19 years. My business partner, Brent, and I have sold over 5,500 homes, over $2 billion in real estate. And we only work with a couple of lenders. And these guys are one of them. And I'll tell you, every day for probably the rest of my life, I could go have free lunch and golf and all this stuff from all these lenders. But we work with people that get the job done because, you only have to, I told you I'm not that smart. I fail a lot. You only have to fail 10, 20 times with a bad lender before you realize what a good one looks like. So if you're not using these guys, highly encourage it. And if you are using them, then tell your friends and let's get them some more business. They do a great job.
Thank you for that.
Thank you for that, Chase. Thank you. We really appreciate having you on. We'll have to do it again soon. Hope you have a good rest of the day. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.